Welcome to another episode of One Idea Away, where we're committed to living more fully, deeply, and consciously. Why? Because when we do, we're calmer, we're clearer, we're more connected, more joyful, and much more alive. On this show, we bring you stories of those that are figuring it out just like us, as well as experts who can shed light on the hows and the whys all of this stuff works. So I want to thank you all for tuning in and sharing and reviewing our show. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a review. Also, subscribe to the podcast on our feed, whether it's on iTunes or whatever app you happen to be using. And if there's something that stands out in the show, do us a favor. If it makes you think of somebody, share it along, because this show is meant to get the conversation started, not just to drop in for a little inspiration. So with that, let's turn to this week's episode. It's finally here. And today I get to announce and tell you about Uncover, a retreat to create the life of your dreams. Uncover is a 3-day retreat being hosted by One Idea Away. I'm going to be there leading and facilitating the retreat, along with IPEC founder and best-selling author Bruce Schneider. We've secured the beautiful Asilomar Conference Grounds in California, just a 90-minute ride from the Bay Area, for January 18th through the 20th. And then we're going to be at the Garrison Institute in New York, just 50 miles north of the city, sitting atop the bluffs of the Hudson River on March 29th through the 31st. In this retreat, we're going to guide you through the Uncover process. You can actually learn more about that in the book, Uncovering the Life of Your Dreams by Bruce Schneider. And you're going to learn and experience a variety of mindfulness activities, share and connect as a community, and learn through practices and dialogue in a supportive and, yes, judgment-free zone. You see, this is about closing the gap between who you know yourself to be and how you're currently showing up in life. You see, that gap is part of the tension that any of us can feel in our hearts and minds, because you know there's something more for you to experience, to enjoy, to share, and to contribute. You may feel as if who you are is covered up by your responsibilities and circumstances and priorities, and we don't want to see anyone lose any more years of their lives not being who they fully and truly are. It's time for that to end, and over these 3 days it will. You will uncover your personal path to happiness, freedom, and aligning with your true desires. I cannot wait to meet you in person. I can't wait to spend the time with you over these 3 days. It's going to be an extraordinary experience. Just go to oneideaaway.com/retreat. That's oneideaaway.com/retreat. I promise you, you will never forget this experience. There's a question that a few of you have written in with recently that I wanted to bring up, and it's come in from a couple of different contexts. It essentially is asking, how is it that I reconnect to my sense of purpose after ... meaning fill in the blank, after the loss of a relationship, after a particular job or a career didn't pan out, after whatever it is that has just recently ended or is drawing to a close. And at those moments, it's like, wait a minute, how do I rediscover that aliveness? Where is that spark? Where is that sense of purpose? And we begin to put a lot of pressure on ourselves for two reasons. Number one is, from a societal standpoint, we're supposed to have an answer to, what is it that you do? Where is it that you're headed? And so we feel this pressure to be able to keep up with, or to have a more concrete, a more confident answer in the way that we represent ourselves. The second, which is really more of what we're feeling internally, is that we don't like feeling the unpleasantness, the uncertainty, the confusion of not knowing where it is that we are headed, or not knowing what it is that's really, truly going on for us at these moments. And so we end up putting a lot of pressure on ourselves for one reason or the other, to feel better, or to move on, or to feel like we have a more concrete direction that we can talk about, not only to answer others, but to convince ourselves that we're going to be okay, that things are actually fine. The challenge is that's very often very counterproductive for us actually discovering and reconnecting to that sense of purpose that we are really truly looking for within our lives. We tend to move on too quickly, and we get ourselves into motion, and really all we're doing is distracting ourselves from that uncomfortable feeling of being in the space between. You see, whenever anything ends before the next thing begins, that's what's known as the space in between. It's this gap in time. And that gap could last a day, a week, a month, a year, or even longer than that. And there's no set time, meaning that that space in between, it doesn't have to last only a certain period of time. Sometimes it'll be quick, sometimes it'll be long. For us, though, it's really about how is it that we can embrace this period of time within our lives, and how is it that we can see the beauty that it offers us. That space in between, before we know what's next, before we truly understand what that purpose may be, or what that direction and what the meaning and what the path to fulfillment may ultimately bring us, before we know those things, this space in between allows us that time to really reconnect to who we are, to be able to ask some of those questions about who really am I? What is it that's really truly important to me? What are the strengths that I wish to use in my life? How is it that I wish to express myself? And how is it that I can move myself into a life that brings me to a sense of alignment with who I really truly am, so that my outer life reflects truly who I am on the inside? The space between allows us the chance to do that. When we move on too quickly, like I said, we move past and we only distract ourselves from taking a look at these deeper questions. So as we find ourselves within this space, number one, it's very important to recognize that we're there, so that we know that this is part of a time. It is a phase that we happen to be going through. It's a stage of life that we happen to be in. Number two is to be okay with that from the standpoint of having a little bit of patience, to be able to say, you know what, I don't know exactly how long this is going to last. I do know that it will transition, meaning it will end. Everything is. That's the only constant in life, is that things change. Everything is impermanent. And so to know that this too shall pass, but it's okay to be patient within that period of time so that you can truly understand what's there. Number three is to recognize that through that period of time, one of the things that you can bring to it that will really deepen your experience is listening. So what I mean by listening, best way to be able to frame this is something that we talk about and I position when we hold retreats. This is actually something that we do inside of the Uncover retreat that we're holding in 2019, is that you may feel like if you're listening to a great speaker, or you're at a retreat and there's somebody facilitating it, if you're reading a really wonderful, inspiring book, very often we tend to listen to their words. We write down notes based off of what it is that they said and what it is that they may believe that we should be doing and how it is that we should be moving forward. And it's not to say that those things can't spark ideas. Certainly they can. It's one of the reasons why I lead retreats. But the most important thing that takes place at a retreat like that is not what it is that I or another facilitator have to offer to you in the way of insight or wisdom or direction or expertise. The greatest thing that we have that we could possibly ever offer to you is the space for you to pause and to reflect and listen deeply to yourself and see what messages and insights and words are starting to come up for you. That's what I mean by listening when you're in that space between. Is yes, you can look at all of the speakers and the authors, and you can look for all the fun videos that are online. You can look for any number of things that help you just start to process and to maybe try some new ideas and thoughts and directions on for yourself. That's great. But what you really want to be doing is listening for the messages that come up from within you. What are the insights that are being offered there? What are the questions? Perhaps most important of all, what are the questions that begin to occur in your heart and in your gut and in your intuition and in your mind? Because those are the questions that you get the chance to answer in the time that you spend in the space between. So you listen so that you're not there getting distracted. You listen so that you're not just on to the next thing, the next activity, the next path. You listen so that you can really truly connect to that inner voice of guidance that is actually there, but it can only be heard when the distractions settle, when there's a little bit of stillness, a little bit of silence, and when you are in that space between. So when you are looking for how it is that you reconnect to that sense of purpose, when you're looking for how it is that you reconnect to that sense of aliveness that we all, of course, want more of within our lives, it's a fun and inspired and engaged and energized way to live. That certainly is what we want to be able to bring out. But when that's not there, one of the greatest things that we can do is learn to be still, to be silent, and to listen. And what's fun is that even when you're out and you're active, you're trying new things on, you're following some interests and passions. Maybe you're taking up a new exercise routine, or you're walking in nature, or you're taking that painting or drawing class that you either always wanted to take or you knew was something you really used to enjoy as a child, but had forgotten and left it behind. Maybe you're learning how to play the piano, whatever it is. even when you're active, even when you're experimenting to see what it is that really feels like it brings you alive and feels like it resonates deeply within you, even when you're active in those moments. Listen for the messages that come up, because you will be able to separate those moments where your inner voice says, hey, you know what? This is fun. It's provided a nice distraction. It felt good. But I don't know if this really truly is, quote unquote, it for you. And then there's going to be other times where your voice, your inner voice, speaks up and says, wow, there's something here that you're connecting to. Be aware, look around, be present to what are you using within you? What are the strengths that are present? What meaning might this hold? What values are you honoring? What beliefs are present here that represent the way that you really truly want to guide your life? Pay attention to those moments even when you're active, and it requires that deeper listening. So as you move forward, one of the practices, and you've probably heard me recommend this on different shows before, that I personally use is that I find that when you're in the space between, that's a wonderful moment to take up a practice of journaling. Now, for me, I actually didn't believe that I was somebody who really would enjoy journaling, and I've actually come to really, truly love it. And more often than not, I tend to try to write out journaling, or I do keep it online, a digital journal that I have as well. And the reason why is it allows me to carry on a conversation with myself, to carry on a conversation with that deeper voice, to ask myself questions and to be able to come back to those thoughts and to those questions and see where it is that they lead me. It helps me really, truly give me the ability to process while I am in that space in between. Because at any given time within our lives, there may be times where we're truly in the space between and we're reconfiguring and looking at the whole of our life. And there's other times where parts of our life, many aspects of our life might feel great and feel like they are really truly aligned to who we are. But there's one or two areas of our life that do need our attention and where we may be stressed or feel like we're suffering in some capacity. And so we can use that sense of journaling to be able to have conversations and ask ourselves questions and process through our thoughts until we start to get down into that really, truly deeper conversation that we've been listening for all along. That's when your greatest insights will come. And that's where you will discover that you already have so many of the answers that you are really, truly looking for. And the beauty is when you connect to those answers that come from you, they're going to be more aligned. You're going to feel like they're much more congruent to the way that you live your life. And that's the way that we rediscover, we reconnect to that sense of meaning and fulfillment and purpose and aliveness and fun within our lives. That's the way that we really, truly connect to all of it. So you don't need to move too fast, right? Just like Simon and Garfunkel told us, right? Slow down, you move too fast. We don't need to do that. Enjoy the space in between. Be okay with it, but use it. Look for the beauty in it. Listen for the words that are actually there behind the stillness and behind the silence and even behind the activities that we take on. There are words that you are meant to hear, but you can't hear them unless you're listening. Hey, as this episode is wrapping up, you may be asking yourself, what's next? Well, what's next? I hope that you've been joining in on the monthly live cast that we do for the One Idea Away community. You see, every single month, we gather some incredible guests that are talking about the types of transitions that they've made or are even in the midst of making to create a happier life, to create a life that's more aligned to who they truly are. So we're talking about happiness and purpose. We're talking about community. We're talking about how do we have that modern day success, meaning how do we succeed in our happiness, our well-being, our quality of life, while also making a great living, making the difference in the contributions that we are each meant to make. So when you get involved in the monthly live cast, you can ask some questions of our guests. You can participate with some of the other community members and the ongoing chat that just seems to explode as we get into these deeper conversations throughout the whole hour that we do this. So the only way, though, that you can get these special episodes is when you register for them. It is free, but you got to register to get involved and continue the conversation as we're always talking about. So just hop on over to oneideaaway.com/livecast. And oneideaaway.com/livecast. Join us there, get involved in the conversation, get involved in the community. I can't wait to continue the conversation with you. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you really enjoyed it, do me a favor, let us know. You can keep the conversation going and send us a message on our Facebook page, which is simply one idea away. Go ahead and tag me in the post or even just direct messages. Also, I would be incredibly grateful if you could share this episode along with someone that you believe could benefit from hearing the ideas and the messages that we got into. That's pretty much why we do this. So you can just go ahead and share it from your app or email it along, whatever works for you. The point is to share, to talk, to discuss, and keep the dialogue going, because it's in those conversations that ideas can take hold and create profound shifts in perspective. That's what allows us to live life more fully, deeply, and consciously. As always, we would love to see you post a review for the podcast in iTunes or whichever app you're using. And until next time, remember, you're never more than one idea away from a whole new reality. This is Luke Iorio and One Idea Away, signing off.